Good day everyone. Welcome back to the Azure Databricks series. In today's video, we are going to walk through how to execute a Databricks notebook from Azure Data Factory using the Databricks pool. We will explore how to set up a pipeline in Data Factory that leverages both a job cluster and an all compute cluster with Databricks pools, allowing you to efficiently run your notebooks at scale. I will take you step by step through the entire process from creating the pipeline to configuring the clusters. So by the end of this video, you will have a solid understanding of how to automate and optimize your notebook executions with Azure Data Factory and Databricks. If you're excited about learning this and future Azure Databricks content, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Let's get started. So right now I have launched the Azure Data Factory Studio. So what I'll be doing is I will be executing a pipeline that will basically be calling a Databricks notebook. Yeah, so let's first look at the Databricks notebook that we are going to call from the Azure Data Factory. Yeah, so this is the notebook that we'll be using, which is one.process_storage_finance data. What it basically does is it basically shows us the content of this particular CSV file that is present on this storage account, JB ADB storage account, and container source. Yeah, let's execute that. If you can see here, we are able to see the required content that is present in this CSV file. Okay, so it's not critical what we are going to execute. What is critical is that how do we call this notebook from Azure Data Factory utilizing the Databricks pools in terms of all compute cluster and then the job cluster. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is let me take you to the compute here in the database in the Databricks workspace. So we have this all-purpose compute called Vivek Janagiraman's cluster. If you open that, you will be able to see that the worker type here is JBS Wiki ADB pool. I will show you what this pool is, but in the meantime, let's look at other configuration here. So this particular cluster has a minimum worker of 1 and maximum worker of 4. Yeah. So now, since this cluster is utilizing this pool, we may require 2 VMs. That is, one VM for the worker and one VM for the driver. So altogether 2. Yeah. Let's go back to the pools here, and if you see here, we have this pool called JBS Wiki ADB pool. Yeah. Now, if you click on that, you can see that the min idle value for this pool is 2, and since this cluster is hooked to this particular pool, this cluster is using 2 VMs, one for the driver and one for the worker, and since the min idle value is 2, 2 idle VMs are provisioned by this pool just to maintain this min idle value. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to head to the Azure Data Factory Studio, and then let's first create the link services. Let's first create the link services. Yeah, let's click on New here, click on Compute, and then select the Azure Databricks. Let's name this as ls_Azure Databricks, and my first link service is going to use the all compute cluster. Yeah, and I will use the integration runtime as Azure IR. Let me select the, and what I'll do is I will select the required workspace, which would be JBS Wiki Databricks. Yeah, here I'm going to select existing interactive cluster. Yeah, and then what I'm going to do is I need to give the access token. I've already copied the access token, so I'm just going to give that. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to select my cluster here, which is Vivek Janagiraman's cluster. Let's do a test connection. And then the connection is successful, so let me create that. Okay, so if you see here, my all compute cluster is created. Okay, so now I'm going to create another link services. Let's go to compute, and this time it will use the job cluster. Okay, select the Azure Databricks, click on continue. Let's name it as ls underscore Databricks job cluster, and then underscore pool. I will use the Azure IR here. Let me select the subscription here, and here I will select this JBS Wiki Databricks workspace. Here, instead of selecting new job cluster or existing interactive cluster, I'm going to use existing instance pool. Yeah, and now let me provide the access token. Yeah, come down and choose from existing pools. We have this JBS Wiki ADB pool, and then the cluster version. So if you go to here and click on edit, you can see that we have used 14.3 LTS. Yeah, or what you can do is like you can also look at this configuration for the pool, and you will see that 14.3 LTS. Okay, so what I'll do, I will select the cluster version as 14.3 LTS. Yeah, okay, just check it one more time. So it looks good. And what I'm going to tell like I will have auto scaling enabled. Min workers would be 2, and then max workers is going to be 4. Yep. And now what I'll do is like I will test a connection. Connection is successful. Let's create it. Okay, so what we'll do now is like we will create a pipeline using which we will first execute that notebook on this all compute cluster, and then next on this particular link services, which basically uses your Databricks pool directly, and that will result in utilizing a job cluster. Okay, so now let's go back to our workspace here. Yeah, and then go to the compute. And if you see here, we have this Vivek Janagiraman's cluster, and this uses our pool. Yeah. And now if I go to the job compute, I can see that we have a old job cluster that was created, but it is stopped now. Yeah. And then now if you look at the pools, we have this JBS Wiki ADB pool. Yeah. And now when I click on that, it is currently being used by this cluster. And then if you can see here, we have total 4 instances. 2 is used by this cluster and 2 is idle. Okay. So now what I'll do is like, let's go to our Data Factory studio, and then let's create a pipeline. So pipeline here, what I'll do is like I will create this pipeline underscore all compute cluster underscore pools, and then go to this Databricks here, use this notebook here, and I will rename this as finance data notebook execution. Okay, and I'll go to this Azure Databricks, and what I'll do is like I will select this ls Azure Databricks all compute cluster underscore pool. Yeah, let's select that. Let's do a test connection. Connection is successful. Now let's go to the settings here, and then what we'll do is like we will select the notebook that we need to execute. Yeah, and let's select this one, process storage finance data, which is same as this one. Let's click on OK, and we have this selected properly. Now what I'll do is like I will publish this. Yeah, Okay, it is published now. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to trigger it. Yeah, click on OK. Let's look at the pipeline run. Okay, so we are waiting for the Databricks cluster to be ready. It went down because of inactivity. So let's go there. Let's do a refresh. It's online. Okay, so it started here. So let's click on it. Okay, so it executed in 1.25 seconds. And now if you see here, this is completed successfully. We don't have any issues. So it took close to 19 seconds. Yeah. So what we did, we utilized link services that basically um, uh, connected to this Vivek Janagiraman's cluster. And if you look at this cluster, it basically uses my pool here. Yeah, this is an all compute cluster. It's an all-purpose compute cluster that basically makes use of this pool here, this pool, and the execution completed. Now what I'll do is like I will create a new pipeline, yeah, and this time my pipeline is going to use the pool directly, which will in turn create a job cluster. Okay, so let me create a new pipeline here. Let me name this pipeline as job cluster underscore pools, and then let's bring in a notebook here. Let's notebook execute finance data, and then I will go to the Databricks here. This time the link service that I'm going to select is ls Azure Databricks underscore job underscore cluster underscore pool. Yeah, so let me do a test connection. Looks good. Let's go to the settings. Let's select the required notebook from here. Yeah, let's go here. Let me select it. Click on OK. So this is selected. Now I'm going to publish it. In the meantime, I'm going to show you one more time that we don't have any other job cluster. This is the one job cluster and job compute cluster, and it is the job is completed, so it is kind of terminated. Yeah. Now what I'll do is like, and let's look at the pools one more time here. And if you see here, right now we have 4 instances. 2 is used by this cluster and 2 is idle. Yeah. Now what we'll do is like, now this is published, so let me trigger it here. Okay, so it's triggered. Let's look at the pipeline run. So it's in progress. So now what I'll do is like I will go to this pool here. Let's do a refresh. It's in progress. Now if you see here, the total instance, as soon as I started this pipeline, what we can see is like the total instance has changed from 4 to 6. Yeah, and also if I look at it here, we now the job cluster is getting hooked up to this particular pool now. Yeah, and if I do a refresh here, you can see that like this cluster is already running, which is using 2 idle nodes previously, and now this package is executing that notebook, which has created a job cluster, and this job cluster is basically using 2 idle VMs. Since the pool has to maintain this value of mid idle 2, it is basically provisioning 2 more. So if you see here, we are able to see like it will be provisioning more. So as far as the job cluster is concerned, we have a configuration of min worker as 2 and max worker as 4. So since the job cluster is starting, we had to use two VMs for the worker and one VM for the driver. So altogether, this job cluster has picked up three VMs. Okay, so two VMs by this all-purpose compute cluster and three VMs by this job cluster, which is altogether five. Yeah. So let's wait for it to start, and then we will be able to see it. In the meantime, let's click on compute here, and then now if you go to the job compute, previously we just saw one job compute cluster. Now we have the second one getting created. Yeah. So in case if we had all the three nodes in the idle state, the job cluster would have started pretty fast. But in our case, we just had two idle VMs on the pool. Yeah, and it had to create one extra VM just to start this particular job cluster. Let's wait for this to complete, and then we will take it from there. Okay, if you see here, the job cluster is running now. And as far as the nodes from the pools are concerned, the job cluster uses three nodes. Two is for the worker and one is for the driver. And now if you look at the pool here, we have total seven VMs. Two has gone to this cluster, three has gone to this job cluster, and two is idle just to satisfy this min idle value. Yeah. Now let's go to our pipeline here, and if you see here, the pipeline has succeeded. Yeah. And now if you see here, just want to click on that, and you will see that the notebook execution would have completed with the help of the job cluster. Yeah. And the job cluster in turn utilizes the pool there. Yeah. And if you see here, it has completed fine. Yeah. And now let's look at the pool here. Now if you see here, the pipeline has completed, so the job cluster is no longer there. Yeah. Now let's click on the compute and go to the job compute, and you can see that the job cluster is here, and also you can see that job cluster in the job runs as well. Yeah. And when you click on this job run, you will be able to get the details like what was it and things like that. Yeah, so it completed in 11 seconds. And if you see here, the job that here you see, it is basically the ADF underscore JBS wiki ADB SI is your Azure Data Factory. Yeah, so this is your data factory, JBS wiki ADB SI. Pipeline job cluster pools is the pipeline that you have created. Uh, Pipeline job cluster pools, and then the notebook is notebook execute finance data. Yeah, so if you see here, you have this notebook execute finance data, and if you see the value here 1C4A, you can get that information here, which is your activity run ID. Yep. So what we do in this video? We created an Azure Data Factory pipeline initially, and we wanted to execute Databricks notebook using the all-purpose compute cluster, which basically utilizes the Databricks pools. Yeah. And the second pipeline that we created, we basically gave the Databricks pools directly on the link services as far as that pipeline is concerned. And when we executed it, it created a job cluster, and then it executed the notebook without any issues. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Jai Hind.